This video is a continuation of a series where I break down the story of each Metroid Prime game. So with that being said, I'm going to tell this story of the second game, as if you've already seen my first video covering Metroid Prime 1. So if you haven't, I strongly recommend you go back and watch that video till the end, and then come back here where I'll break down everything you need to know about Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. Alright, now that you're back, I assume you know in detail who Samus is, what Phazon is, who Planet Phase is, what a Leviathan Seed is, who Metroid Prime / Dark Samus is, and the conclusion of Samus's adventure on Talon 4. So without further ado, let's get into it. When does Metroid Prime 2 take place? Within the story chronologically, Prime 2 takes place after Prime 1, and after Metroid Prime Hunters, which will be getting its own video dedicated to its story. The precise time of this game isn't completely clear, but based on various Metroid media and logs, it is widely believed that Prime 2 takes place roughly 1 year after the conclusion of Metroid Prime 1. Which brings us to our next question. What is the setup for Metroid Prime 2? After the conclusion of Prime 1, Samus Aran is led to believe that Metroid Prime has been completely destroyed on Talon 4, but she would be incorrect in that assumption, as Prime was reborn in a new form after stealing Samus's Phazon suit that she had acquired from the Omega Pirate. Now, Metroid Prime, or better yet, Dark Samus, is on the verge of returning to the scene. Meanwhile, Samus receives a mission file, alerting her that Squad Bravo of the Galactic Federation had lost contact with the military 8 days earlier. As a result, Samus is sent by the Federation to planet Aether, in order to find these missing soldiers and render aid wherever it's needed. As her gunship enters the planet's atmosphere, it is met with extreme turbulence from a very unstable planet. The ship is struck with lightning, causing significant damage and resulting in the aircraft temporarily losing power, as she plummets to the planet's surface. The ship just then regains power, right as Samus crashes through the roof of a cave. In her typical epic fashion, she dismounts from her aircraft, and this is where our adventure officially begins. It doesn't take long for Samus to notice all of the dead Federation troopers throughout the caves. Some are hanging from the ceiling, appearing to have fallen to the planet's natural predators. Unfortunately, appearances can be misleading, as she'll soon discover that something more sinister is going on than simply hostile natural inhabitants. As she begins to enter a Federation outpost, several dead members of Team Bravo begin to reanimate, as they become hosts of a dark sentient organism. Reluctantly, Samus disposes of these possessed troopers and continues on her mission. Soon afterwards, Samus enters a room and discovers a dark figure who resembles her own appearance. The figure enters a unique and ominous-looking purple portal, to which Samus quickly follows. The experience is jarring for Samus, as her body is ripped through space and time, while she enters another dimension, known as Dark Aether. More on that in a bit. Once there, she sees a variety of threats, including dark versions of the splinters she saw earlier, and she also sees Dark Samus, who's casually absorbing a tremendous amount of Phazon. Then Dark Samus shoots the crystal behind Samus Aran, which eliminates its protective bubble of light energy, which exposes Samus to the toxic atmosphere of Dark Aether. As Samus struggles with the poisonous air, she is then mauled by an array of dark creatures, and then launched back into the portal. After the dust settles, she discovers that much of her equipment and abilities were stolen, including her missile launcher, grapple beam, space jump thrusters, and so on. A weakened Samus is now forced to continue her mission at a disadvantage. She explores more of the planet, before eventually reaching Team Bravo's spaceship, surrounded by the corpses of the fallen troopers. Samus then downloads the team's data files, and learns more about the horror that befell the squad. While Team Bravo was on patrol in the Dasha system, they discovered a space pirate frigate orbiting planet Aether. They attacked the frigate, which sent it spiraling towards the planet, and the team pursued. But then, they entered Aether's thunderous atmosphere, Their ship was damaged and became inoperable. The storm's activity disabled their comm system, making them unable to contact Federation headquarters. Upon landing, they split into 2 units, one to set up an ops base and the other to repair the ship. Some time passed and things were running smoothly, with the troopers operating in shifts to maintain constant security. But it all came crashing down when they attacked. A swarm of possessed splinters ambushed the troopers. Regular splinters were manageable with Federation artillery, but not these. This was no natural enemy, but they were stronger, more brutal, and unrelenting. This was the Aang. More on them in a bit. Within a matter of hours, maybe minutes, every single Marine of Squad Bravo had perished. All 38 men and 2 women deceased. After taking a moment to mourn her fellow soldiers, Samus presses on. She progresses through the temple grounds before eventually reaching the Great Temple of Aether. Inside, she is confronted by the Dark Alpha Splinter. Once she finally defeats this difficult foe, she discovers that this guardian of the Aang was holding an item of immeasurable value, the Energy Transfer Module. This item instantly bonds itself to Samus's armor, which in time will reveal itself to be the key to saving this planet. Then she proceeds into the inner chamber, where she meets Umos, the last remaining Luminoth Sentinel on planet Aether. Which brings us to our next question. Who are the Luminoth? Well, for starters, they are incredibly advanced beings both technologically and spiritually, similar to that of the Chozo. The Luminoth are massive, standing as tall as 12 feet high, and they have many special abilities, like heightened reflexes, durability, psionic, and flight. They have the ability to generate and manipulate energy on par with the abilities of the Chozo. According to Luminoth lore, the Luminoth were not born on Aether, but among the stars. For a very long time, they roamed across hundreds of stars, where they met fellow enlightened minds, like the Nekren, the Yila, the Brionians, and the Chozo. In time, each of those beings claimed a homeworld, and eventually the Luminoth decided to do the same, which ended up being planet Aether. When the Luminoth eventually found Aether, it was a beautiful paradise, to an extent that they had never seen before. The Luminoth had a spiritual and emotional connection to light energy, which naturally made Aether incredibly appealing, as it was a gorgeous environment radiating with light. The land of Agon was brimming with life and vegetation, while the green forest of Torvis was a lovely oasis. They fell in love with the planet, and lost any previous desires to remain among the stars. For years, the Luminoth flourished in the light of Aether, living in an era of peace. But then, everything would take a dramatic, terrifying, and despairing turn. A meteorite was quickly approaching Aether, which is tragic on its own, but it was even worse than just any regular meteor, as this was a Leviathan seed, sent out from the planet Phase. The Luminoth did everything they could to disrupt the meteor's trajectory, but nothing worked, and eventually they accepted the outcome, and instead prepared for the upcoming cataclysmic event by storing food and resources while creating homes underground. Then it happened. The meteor's impact devastated the planet, which birthed the land of Agon and turned it into a scorched wasteland. And the once beautiful forest of Torvis was overrun by tsunami floods, turning it into a bog. According to the Cataclysm lore in Agon Wastes, the sky was burning for days, casting darkness all over the land. The planet became unstable, with frequent quakes and extreme climate shifts that made most of Aether uninhabitable. Most of the planet's population was wiped out from the impact, but enough Luminoth remained that there was at least a small sliver of hope for a resurgence. Unfortunately, they would soon discover that the situation was only getting worse. Much, much worse. Because when the meteor struck, a rift was torn in space and time. The violent impact split the dimensions, one of light and one of shadow. In the game, this is referred to as a transdimensional flux. When the dimensions divided, the energy of the planet was also split evenly. Now, there was no longer just Aether, but a dark Aether as well. One was a scorched wasteland of a once thriving planet, while the other was a hellish, toxic nightmare. Tears in the dimension in the form of portals made interdimensional travel possible, meaning that inhabitants of light Aether could travel to dark, but also inhabitants of dark Aether could travel to light, which is where things became truly horrific, which takes us to our next segment. Who are the Ing? The Ing is a parasitic bioform. They are basically an intelligent race of shape-shifting symbiotic creatures who take on all kinds of appearances, both unique and mock forms. The Ing operate as a well-regulated militia, complete with various ranks and roles. Some are hunters, some are warriors, and some are even recruiters. In their purest form, they are amorphous black and purple creatures, often initially appearing as a gaseous cloud known as black fog. This black fog version of the Ing is an effective tool for corrupting and recruiting various life forms to the Ing horde, regardless if the host is currently dead or alive. The Ing reside in the dark dimension of Aether in mass numbers. But when it comes to their origin of existence, there's actually a lot of mystery surrounding the Ing. Clearly, their presence on Aether is a result of the Leviathan Seed's impact. But questions remain. Were they created from the impact? Was their dark dimension always present, but the meteor simply revealed it? Are they Phazon-based creatures who came from the planet Phase? None of this is clearly defined in the lore, and as a result is often argued over by the most knowledgeable and passionate Metroid fans. Personally, I believe the Ing did initially come from planet Phase, since you can see Inglet forms on Phase in Metroid Prime 3, known as Phase Ings. But even the supposed Inglets don't share the exact same exterior appearance, as they're completely covered in Phazon in Prime 3. One theory is that the Ing were initially from somewhere else in the universe, then found their way to planet Phase, and eventually traveled to Aether on a Leviathan Seed. I would love to hear some various opinions in the comment section below, but the simple reality is that the Ing were now on Dark Aether en masse, as a result of the meteor's impact. It wouldn't be long before the Ing discovered the dimensional portals, and began invading Light Aether, terrorizing the Luminoth and the various remaining life forms. They possessed and corrupted many creatures and even the Luminoth, making them a part of the Ing horde, and adopting them to their ranks. This, in a way, was how the Ing ultimately got their name, as the word Ing simply means terror in the Luminoth's native language. Yet with all of this being said, the Luminoth were a prideful, wise, and resourceful race, who would not be taken out so easily. So they prepared themselves for battle, and what ensued was an epic and arduous war between the two species, which would further devastate the planet's population and ecosystem. The Luminoth created light-based weapons, armor, and sanctuaries specifically for the intent of combating the Ing's dark energy. The Luminoth sent armed squads into Dark Aether, where they struggled immensely with the toxic atmosphere. But at the very least, their light-based creations made the process manageable. They also created machinery and heavy artillery to combat the Ing, which was quite successful for a while. But in due time, the Ing learned that they could corrupt these machines as well, which was a devastating realization to the Luminoth to say the least. The war lasted for almost 50 years, with some battles being won, but ultimately the war itself was swaying in the favor of darkness. Both the Ing and the Luminoth understood the crucial value of the planet's light and dark energy, and how both dimensions were sustained in their unstable state due to the split in energy. If one world was to gain control of the energy entirely, then the other world would perish completely. Due to this, the Luminoth created an energy transfer module, with the intent of sending in a team to Dark Aether, taking the energy from the Ing and returning it to Light Aether, which would ultimately secure their victory and the death of the Ing. Tragically, this mission failed, and the incredibly valuable module fell into the hands of the Ing, who then began to use it in their favor. First Agon fell, then Torvis, then their sanctuary fortress. 3 out of the 4 light sources had been stolen and was now in possession of the Ing. On the brink of defeat and extinction, the last remaining Luminoth Sentinel, Umos, sealed himself away with his people, and with their very last light source in their sacred temple. There he despaired, yet prayed for their salvation and the demise of the Ing. Now with Samus's arrival, she represented hope, and with the energy transfer module now in her possession, they had a fighting chance once again. That's when, at the request of Umos, she sent out on her new mission, to recover the energy from the temples of Dark Aether, and return them to the Light World. But even as challenging as her task was, the Ing would not be her only opposition in this adventure. What else stands in Samus's path? Well, let's not forget what started this whole thing for Samus Aran and the Galactic Federation, which was the discovery of the space pirates in the region. In a similar fashion to their discovery of Talon 4, the pirates came to Aether when they detected phazon energy radiating from the planet, which at this point is their most coveted energy resource in the entire universe. According to a space pirate log, they had been on Aether for 4 cycles before Samus showed up, which is speculated to be the equivalent of 12 years. During that time, the pirates have been building outposts and harvesting phazon. This job has become extremely difficult for the pirates for a multitude of reasons. 1, the natural habitat is hostile towards the pirates. 2, the Ing is a threat to the pirates as well, as they are frequently attacking and possessing various pirate troopers. 3rd, Dark Samus has now arrived, as she is now also in pursuit of this phazon, as she attempts to gain strength by absorbing as much of it as she possibly can. Regularly, Dark Samus is raiding various space pirate outposts, stealing their phazon while the pirates are utterly powerless to stop her. Their phazon energy levels are extremely low and unsatisfactory, which results in them breeding Talon Metroids to use as an emergency alternative to phazon energy. Now, Samus Aran has also arrived, who is additionally causing havoc for the pirates by taking out their troops as she attempts to save Aether and the Luminoth. If anything, the pirates are treated as an inconvenient nuisance in this game. They're simply outmanned and outgunned by several factions, who have a much greater role to play in this story. Dark Samus, though, remains as the ultimate threat, as she is continuously gaining power throughout, with every ounce of phazon that she consumes. Our bounty hunter has to battle her several times throughout her adventure. With each confrontation, Dark Samus grows in strength and capabilities, as she seems almost impossible to defeat due to her regeneration ability. In time, Samus recovers her tools, abilities, and weaponry, and acquires much of the light energy as she defeats some of the Ing's greatest assets, like Amorbus, Chica, and Quadraxis, all while utilizing the technology left behind in the Luminoth's war. Then, she slowly acquires the 9 keys necessary to enter the Sky Temple, which were hidden by the Ing as a way to protect their last energy source. The final energy source is protected by the leader of the Ing's military, known as the Emperor Ing, the Alpha and the Omega of the species. After a complex battle involving several phases, Samus ultimately defeats the greatest of the Ing, securing the last energy source from Dark Aether. Naturally, this results in the dimension beginning to collapse upon itself, as it is now completely destabilized. Samus flees the Sky Temple, and just when she attempts to enter the portal to Light Aether, she's confronted once again by Dark Samus, who's now overflowing with phazon energy to a terrifying extent. This tremendous energy has made her transparent, revealing her face that looks eerily similar to her previous Metroid Prime form. At this point, Samus Aran is running out of time, and is outgunned by this supremely powerful being, as now most of her attacks are completely ineffective against this foe. But then, just in time, she discovers his weakness, as Samus can use the phazon as a weapon, further overloading Dark Samus's body, causing damage to it. After continuing this method, Samus finally defeats her new rival, as Dark Samus reaches out, making one last attempt to harm her, before evaporating into the atmosphere. With that, Samus quickly enters the portal and flees Dark Aether one final time. And as she does, she sees the last remaining Ing on Aether go down with their toxic dimension, as it finally ceases to exist. The last of the remaining light energy has been returned to Aether, as the unstable planet now becomes stable and the violent storms finally subside. Upon her return, Samus is greeted by Umos, the last remaining Luminoth, who are relieved and grateful for their salvation. And with that, Samus walks off with her mission now complete, as she bids farewell and returns to her ship. It's a nice moment, and kinda makes you forget about the fact that all of Squad Bravo is still very dead. Samus takes her clothes off and then victoriously flies off into space, as she waits to be summoned for her next mission. But orbiting the planet is a collection of blue phazon particles. They begin to combine as the dreaded enemy regenerates herself once again. Dark Samus will return, and this time her vengeance will be devastating. This is the conclusion of the story of Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. There's a lot of additional lore to unpack, and of course there's the story of Metroid Prime 3 and the other Metroid games, but I'll cover those in future videos. Did you guys enjoy it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more Metroid and Zelda content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.